With all this talk of Nolan's Odyssey being likened to other epics like Ben-Hur and Lawrence of Arabia, got me thinking, what was the first epic story you remember? For me, I'd like to believe it was Revenge of the Sith. That finale is seriously Shakespearean. But if I'm honest with myself, I think it happened earlier. I remember as a kid sticking in a VCR and...
That I am. With eyes closed, you recall.
The Prince of Egypt is the best animated movie ever made. No, that's not hyperbole, I'm not joking, it's the best. Every granular detail about this movie makes it the masterpiece it is. A complete labour of love by the studio and everyone involved, but we'll get into all that in a moment.
If I recall correctly, you were there switching heads right along with me.
The Prince of Egypt was the first epic I was ever exposed to, a story from the book of Exodus, from the Bible, the story of Moses. Born a Hebrew and raised as a Prince of Egypt, however, Moses comes to understand his true heritage and goes on a journey of self-discovery and discovery with the divine, finding a purpose beyond himself and leading the Hebrew people to a life beyond slavery.
Behold, the power of God.
Now, whilst the story is overtly religious, I have to respect it for taking a human approach, something more secular that allows anyone of any religion or lack thereof to still attach themselves to the story.
The Prince of Egypt is the dramatic story of two brothers.
Oh, well, it's a brother story.
Whose futures are destined to collide.
How about now?
The focus here is on that of two brothers.
The Prince of Egypt tells the story of two men.
And the love that genuinely exists between them.
Two brothers that fall apart, that become estranged.
No! All I've ever known to be true is a lie.
That love is never treated as a given or a shortcut. It's felt in small, painful moments.
Both of these men care about each other in a way that doesn't make their calling or responsibilities incidental.
Ramses is visibly wounded when Moses returns his ring, a quiet rejection that hurts more than any grand act of defiance. Likewise, Moses never takes pleasure in standing against his brother. When Ramses finally lets the Hebrews go, Moses isn't triumphant, he's grieving, wanting to console a brother who just lost his son.
Leave me.
This is, at its core, a story about two brothers choosing different paths in the face of tyranny, not simply a religious parable. Their bond grounds the epic in raw humanity, and by centering the conflict on love, loss, and impossible choices, the film becomes accessible to anyone, regardless of their faith.
I think it's inspiring to everybody, regardless of your religious background, because it's such a distinctly human story, Moses.
The brilliance of The Prince of Egypt is that it elevates the brotherhood story to speak to secular audiences while still keeping the divine firmly in the focus.
Just the meaning of the story, the whole
I do not know this God.
issue of the unseen, something in life, something that makes life worthwhile that is not readily on the surface.
Allowing both to coexist without diminishing either.
It is a timeless story.
I will not be dictated to.
It's quite magnificent.
Let go of your contempt for life before it destroys everything you hold dear.
And this balance between the human and the divine is perhaps most powerfully expressed through Moses himself, who functions as a kind of lost sheep within the story. What's crucial here is that Moses does not find God. God finds Moses.
Who are you?
Much like the biblical metaphor of the shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep to seek the one who wandered, God actively pursues Moses. The burning bush is not a reward for righteousness, it's an interruption. God calls Moses by name, repeatedly insisting on his worth and his purpose even as Moses doubts that calling.
You've chosen the wrong messenger. How can I even speak to these people?
In a beautiful irony, Moses is literally a shepherd at this point in the story, tending sheep while unknowingly being one himself. The lost sheep is found, and in being found, he's asked to return to the flock. Not just to Egypt, but to his people, to his identity, and to a responsibility larger than himself. His return to Egypt is not about power or destiny, but about restoration, both personally and collective, as Moses leads the Hebrews out of slavery alongside him.
I think it's the best animated film and one of the great stories that's been told.
Look, the making of this movie has to be just as epic and just as captivating as the story itself.
An epic adventure.
Jeffrey Katzenberg was the chairman of Disney, wanting to make a religious story, an angle Disney did not want to touch. After all, fairy tales were working out for them.
I didn't want us to tell fairy tales. I wanted us to try and pick a interesting, dramatic, epic, embracing all the technique of animation. Steven sort of thought about it for a couple of seconds, and he sort of leaned forward and he said, well, why don't we do the 10 Commandments? Just like that.
So, with the help of music industry juggernaut David Geffen and movie industry titan Steven Spielberg, they founded DreamWorks in '94.
We're determined to create.
The question was, how do we rise to the visual challenges presented by this epic story, filled with plagues and miracles and acts of God?
The goal of DreamWorks was to tell creator-led stories, to find great narratives and tell those
in a way that empowers the artist to tell their creative vision and tell the story without taking the audience out of that story.
To let the artist behind them sing.
It's an extraordinary achievement.
A scene that used to take 9 months to try to put together, now you can do them in about 3 days.
Because it's so different from anything that's being done in animation, nobody else would dare touch it.
This wasn't going to be turned in half-assed. No, what we saw of this production was a 4-year labor of love.
The Prince of Egypt features the talents of more than 425 DreamWorks
animators, technicians, and musicians 4 years to the big screen.
It's just huge.
Filmmakers wanted the Prince of Egypt to expand the aesthetic boundaries of animation.
But nothing like this. I don't think anything like this has ever been done before.
For inspiration, they looked to 19th century French illustrator Gustave Doré for his dramatic use of light, to Impressionist painter Claude Monet for his handling of color and place, and to film director David Lean for his epic sense of cinema and scale.
If you're gonna paint a scene, it's gotta feel hot on screen. There's a scene when Moses is walking through the desert and he's gonna die. But to get that kind of emotion to translate on a screen, you have to be there. Feel the glare hitting you in the face, you feel the sweat. It's an emotional thing, and film has to be an emotional thing.
What truly sets The Prince of Egypt apart and cements it as a once-in-a-generation film is the sheer level of craft poured into every frame.
The level of artistry, of graphic artistry, and the intelligence of the scenes, that impressed me hugely.
This was a movie pushing animation forward, seamlessly blending traditional 2D animation with early 3D techniques in a way that felt invisible rather than showy.
By expanding the limits of computer-generated imagery, and pushing the envelope of technology.
Crowds, architecture, chariots, and environments are given a scale and physicality that elevates the film into truly epic territory.
The effort that's been put into this film is extremely significant.
Without ever losing the handcrafted intimacy of its characters. It's not technology for technology's sake, but technology in service of story, used to give weight and enormity to moments that really demand it.
Form is capable of giving a story like this all the grandeur and the size of the tapestry that's needed.
Like, I just need you guys to understand how insane this movie is.
The Red Sea as a sequence is using over 300,000 hours of rendering time, which is over 32 years of technical rendering time, which is almost double the total rendering time on Titanic.
It's operating on another level. It's totally worth mentioning the obvious allusions to cinema, but wow, I just want to jump straight into the imagery throughout the film. Ramses is constantly framed alongside the monuments of his father, dwarfed by them, or literally positioned within them, sitting in the lap of a statue, backed by towering murals that loom over him. His poses, his stances, even the way he holds himself are deliberate echoes of the pharaoh before him.
But one weak link can break the chain of a mighty dynasty. I will not be the weak link.
It's ingenious visual reinforcement of the impossible shadow he's trying to live up to. In contrast, Moses is often framed with space, light, and movement until that space begins to collapse as he leans into the truth of who he is. One of the most striking moments comes when the Pharaoh touches Moses and calls him son, only for Moses to pull away and slip back into the shadows.
When he says my son, I'd actually have him put his hands on Moses, touch him on both shoulders, and Moses takes himself not only out of the light, but removes himself from his father's touch. And then you go to your shot where he disappears out of the light.
If it's not clicking, it's a quiet but devastating visual metaphor that he's severing from that world. At its core, this is a film no other studio would have dared to make. In an era dominated by clean-cut stories and empty whimsy, The Prince of Egypt actively flips that expectation on its head.
Stop! Stop it! Leave that man alone!
We were going to do the story of Moses. I said, well, that's ambitious.
It embraces genuine tragedy, true spectacle, and characters burdened with real weight and consequence. These aren't simplified heroes and villains, they're people shaped and broken by power, faith, fear, and love.
I understand, Father.
And do you understand the task for which your birth has destined you? The ancient traditions.
The film also refuses to shy away from the darkness inherent in its story.
Oh, my son. They were only slaves.
From the opening frames, it confronts slavery, brutality, and suffering head-on. There are depictions of genocide, death, torture, sacrifice, and even allusions to sexual violence. Elements almost unheard of in mainstream animated movies, particularly ones aimed at families. And yet, despite all of this, the film is fundamentally hopeful. It doesn't soften the discomfort or pull its punches, it asks you to just sit with it, to feel it, and reckon with it. That's what elevates it beyond entertainment. Fun art distracts, but great art demands engagement, makes you think, makes you feel, and leaves you changed.
I've done nothing in my life worth honoring.
First you rescue Zipporah from Egypt, then you defend my younger daughters from brigands. You think that is nothing? It seems you do not know what is worthy of honor.
The Prince of Egypt does exactly that.
Jeffrey, Stephen, and David's decision to make this a film that they had to make rather than a film that they were marketing was the best decision they could have possibly made.
Look, the beauty of the story like The Prince of Egypt lies in its intention. The film doesn't exist simply to entertain, it exists to speak to something deeply human.
Because the focus isn't on turning out toys, it isn't on doing things that other people want you to do, it's to do a film that they actually think is a good film.
It's artists simply wanting to adapt one of the greatest stories of humankind, and do it well. There's no agenda, just artists trying to make good art. A story they all fully commit to. The musicians, the actors, all understood the weight of taking this on.
It's got real spiritual themes and ideas in it.
What it results in is a passion and dedication to the craft you don't often get with other animated movies.
He's never turned us down when we've asked him to come back, even if it was for one single line, to just make that dialogue read a little bit better.
That intent gives the film a kind of emotional sustenance that stands in stark contrast to other lightweight or meandering animated movies we often see today.
Perhaps this movie will intrigue them in a different way than another kind of animated movie. You know, I think that it will be provoking for them on their level.
Some movies teach us how to escape reality, but great movies teach us how to engage with it, holding a mirror up to our own spiritual well-being and nudging us towards the greater mysteries of life. We might see this with Star Wars and what it says about the Force, The Matrix and what it says about consciousness, or Avatar with God and Awa and Pandora itself. There's a clear distinction between stories that are merely entertaining and stories that feed the soul. At its core, it's fundamentally a human film, and that humanity is what gives moments like this its power. But let me double down because the characters are deeply humanized, which is no small feat considering the subject matter. Moses is portrayed as personable and flawed, not as distant and untouchable like other prophets, but a man struggling with his identity, guilt, and purpose. Likewise, the Pharaoh and Ramses aren't monsters, they're people bound by fear, expectation, and the crushing weight of legacy, forced down paths shaped by their desires and the duty to uphold a dynasty.
I will not be the weak link.
That simple complexity makes the conflict way more painful and far more resonant. Much of this humanity comes directly from the artists themselves. The film is infused with personal touches that ground it emotionally.
I just use a lot of influences from my own life if I can get it.
The inspiration for Moses' wife came from an animator's real-life partner.
My wife is a big inspiration as well for the childish kind of side of Zipporah.
The way Moses' adoptive mother constantly touches and reassures him mirrors the way an animator was comforted by his own mother.
I try and do things that are natural. Hopefully the Moses-mother relationship comes off like that too. I made it so she's always touching him. She's trying to console him, and my mother would do that whenever I got too upset.
These intimate details may seem small, but they give the film a lived-in authenticity, as though the artist left pieces of themselves inside their work.
It's all come from your heart. I mean, there's nothing really can fake. All what you do, it's all on the screen.
This commitment is matched by a cast that clearly believed in the material.
Moses is played by Val Kilmer, and Ramses played by Ray Fiennes. The film features an all-star cast including Michelle Pfeiffer, Steve Martin, Martin Short, Jeff Goldblum, Danny Glover, and Sandra Bullock as Miriam.
You're playing with the big boys now.
So you can feel the cast here are just operating on another level. Yet, for all its incredible voice work and stunning visuals, the heart of The Prince of Egypt lies in its art, but the soul of the film lives in its music.
Songs and animated features have become very, very important in terms of both telling the story.
Hans Zimmer's sweeping, thunderous score gives the story its epic weight, while Stephen Schwartz's songs Deliver Us, Through Heaven's Eyes, and many more elevate the narrative into just something completely timeless.
How do you measure the worth of a man?
You must look at your life. Look at your life through heaven's eyes.
One of the things that we set out to do was make sure that the songs were always about some event that happens within the film.
These musical numbers don't just accompany the movie, they're used to show the passage of time, a lesson learned, a call for help, or a warning. They add to the story.
Look at your life through heaven's eyes.
One of the most fascinating cases to me is All I Ever Wanted, a complete reversal on the I Want song. Usually it's used to establish an intent, goal, or dream for the main character, but for Moses, his I Want song is haunting, a confrontation with having all he has ever wanted and knowing it to be a lie.
Sweet perfumes of incense, graceful rooms of alabaster stone, all I ever wanted, this is my home.
It's an internal reckoning that leads him down the path of walking away from Egypt. I feel like we briefly glossed over Hans Zimmer, even though his work is some of the best of his career and arguably the most important to the story. See, we understand the story visually, but we feel it through sound. Zimmer has often said, and Nolan has echoed this, that he works in very simple ideas and then builds them into something enormous. Composer and scholar Frank Lehman calls this approach maximal minimalism, and The Prince of Egypt is a perfect example of it.
All right, we got Simon here. Simon knows a lot about music. I don't know anything about music. He's going to help us out.
So, there is a particular motif that you've actually picked up.
At the center of the score is a simple 5-note motif associated with God,
which is this God motif. Da 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 da. It's 1 8 7. Yeah, 1 8 7 5 6. And the reason why I'm using numbers is because it changes key along the way.
Zimmer uses these notes whenever the divine presence is near, during miracles, moments of revelation, or even just the feeling that something greater is approaching.
Musical foreshadowing.
Love it. So the power of the score doesn't come from the complexity, but from its repetition. The motif returns again and again, first in the opening crawl, then with his presence during the burning bush, and later on during his miracles, slowly growing in intensity. Until those same simple notes feel overwhelming and epic. It's minimalist in its construction, but massive in emotional impact.
Who made man's mouth? Who made the deaf, the mute, the seeing, or the blind? Did not I? Now go!
What's even more impressive is how carefully this motif is woven into the story. See, it's also featured during All I Ever Wanted. When Moses sings, "This is my home," 4 of those 5 notes appear, but 1 note is missing.
This is my home.
Yeah.
But you described it's missing a note, and it's not the last note, it's the first note.
Exactly. It's funny that he sings, "This is my home," which is the last 4 notes of the God motif. It's not the last note that he's missing. It's not the middle note. It's the first thing. There's 100 different ways you can interpret that. The way I would see that is in the time of Moses, when he gets the 10 commandments, the first commandment is love your God with all your heart, with all your mind and all your soul. God should always be first, but that first note is missing. So he's identifying, this is my home, but it's not really because he's missing God.
That missing leap finally appears during the burning bush sequence, when Moses fully confronts God and accepts his call.
It's literally just the exact same 5 notes. For the entire time that God is present in this scene, you've got the same 5 notes. Dum, ba, dum, da, dum. And then you'll have voices carry out, and even when they change chord, they don't change the same 5 notes. So there's a different chord playing, same 5 notes. Different chord yet again, same 5 notes.
This is Zimmer at his best, taking a simple melody, repeating it, reshaping it, and letting it grow alongside the character and the story. By the time we reach moments like this,
Parting the Red Sea, he's using this horn, and specifically the French horn, because it's quite powerful, it's quite driven. The French horn was used in a lot of war callings. It's like the bottom,
Gotcha.
that's everyone
Cool.
coming down. Bam.
the music feels epic not because it suddenly becomes louder or more complex, but because it's been patiently built to, note by note, across the entire film.
You'll have music written in different keys, but with the horn, if you tell the horn to play a C, the horn will actually play an E flat or an F or whatever the key the horn is in. And so when writing that same line for the horn, they have to write it lower or higher so that that horn plays that note. It's a fifth lower, so if they're playing an E, it's A. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Running through all of this is the central idea that quietly but powerfully defines the film. Do not be afraid. On the surface, it's a spiritual calling to the Hebrew people, that salvation will come, but on a meta level, it speaks directly to the film's very existence and shaping itself. The Prince of Egypt is a movie that wasn't afraid to do its thing. It wasn't afraid to tell a story of meaning in a landscape increasingly dominated by simple entertainment. It wasn't afraid to slow down, to sit in silence, to confront suffering, or to ask its audience to wrestle with difficult ideas. It's a film with the balls to practice what it preaches. I'd go so far as to argue that The Prince of Egypt is not just one of the best animated films ever made, but the best. It hits on a level that few films manage to reach. This isn't a simple religious story, it's a story about striving towards something greater than yourself. Moses isn't a hero in the conventional sense, he's just a man, flawed and uncertain, trying to do a little better for the world and atone for his wrongdoings. That quiet human scale is what makes the story resonate so deeply. This film is personal to me, it always will be, and every time I revisit it, I get goosebumps, because it doesn't just move me emotionally, it challenges me spiritually, regardless of belief. This sequence is just beautiful. The Prince of Egypt succeeds because it treats its story, its characters, and its audience with profound respect. It doesn't talk down, it doesn't simplify, and it does not flinch. It reaches for something higher, something enduring, and in doing so, it reminds us what animated films and storytelling as a whole are capable of when we dare to not be afraid. An animated triumph.